My rich fiancé demanded I quit my job and cut off my friends because a proper wife should devote herself to her husband only. When I refused, he secretly had my work contract terminated and smirked. Now you have no choice. At our rehearsal dinner, I took the mic and said, since you like making decisions for me, let's talk about my decision to leave you. I never thought I'd be sharing this, but here we are. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and until recently, I believed I had my life figured out. I had a career I loved, friends who felt like family, and a fiancé who seemed like the perfect partner. But things took a turn I never expected. I met Daniel about 2 years ago at a charity event in San Francisco. He was 32, charming, and successful in his own right. Our connection was immediate. We started dating, and everything felt like a dream. He was attentive, supportive, and always spoke about our future together. After a year of dating, he proposed, and I said yes without hesitation. As we began planning our wedding, Daniel started expressing some traditional views about marriage that hadn't come up before. He believed that once we were married, I should quit my job to focus on our home and future children. He also suggested that some of my friends weren't the best influence and that it might be better to distance myself from them. I was taken aback. My career was a significant part of my identity, and my friends had been with me through thick and thin. I tried to discuss my feelings with Daniel, hoping we'd find a middle ground. I explained how much my job meant to me and how my friends were like family. But Daniel was firm. He believed that a wife's primary role was to support her husband and manage the household. He said that his mother had done the same, and he expected his wife to follow suit. Despite our disagreements, I continued with the wedding preparations, hoping that Daniel would come around. But things escalated. One day at work, I was called into a meeting with HR. They informed me that they had received an email from my personal account, stating that I was resigning effective immediately. I was shocked. I hadn't sent any such email. After some investigation, it became clear that Daniel had accessed my email and sent the resignation on my behalf. When I confronted Daniel, he didn't deny it. Instead, he told me that he was doing what was best for us and that now I could focus on the wedding and our future together. I was furious and felt betrayed. This was a massive violation of trust. I decided to take some time to think. I stayed with my friend, Sarah, who had always been my confidant. She listened, offered support, and helped me see things more clearly. I realized that Daniel's actions were controlling and manipulative. This wasn't the partnership I had envisioned. The rehearsal dinner was approaching, and I knew I had to make a decision. With the support of my friends and family, I decided to call off the wedding. But I wanted to make sure Daniel understood the gravity of his actions. At the rehearsal dinner, with all our friends and family gathered, I stood up to speak. I thanked everyone for coming and supporting us. Then I turned to Daniel and said, since you've taken it upon yourself to make decisions for me, let's discuss my decision. I'm calling off the wedding. The room fell silent. Daniel looked stunned. I continued, explaining how he had violated my trust and tried to control my life. I expressed that marriage should be a partnership based on mutual respect, and his actions showed the opposite. After that night, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reached out to my employer, explained the situation, and was fortunate enough to get my job back. I surrounded myself with friends and family who supported me. It wasn't easy, but I learned the importance of standing up for myself and recognizing red flags in relationships. After the rehearsal dinner bombshell, I thought that was the end. I thought Daniel would get the message, disappear, and let me move on with my life. I was wrong. 2 days later, I started getting texts from unknown numbers. Some were vague threats. Some were cruel jokes about how I'd ruined a good man and embarrassed myself in front of everyone. At first, I ignored them. But then my parents started getting calls from numbers they didn't recognize. My mom called me, worried. Someone told her I was having a mental breakdown and needed help. That's when I realized Daniel wasn't going to walk away quietly. I blocked his number, deleted him off everything, and changed all my passwords, email, social media, banking, everything. I even switched my phone number. But things kept happening. I'd get notifications of someone trying to log into my work accounts. Twice, my Amazon deliveries were canceled after being confirmed. Then my boss called me into a meeting and asked if I was okay. He said someone had emailed him pretending to be me again. That's when I knew Daniel hadn't just gone behind my back once. He was trying to ruin me from every angle. I hired a lawyer. The moment we started collecting evidence, it all began piling up. My old email login showed access from an IP address I didn't recognize, one that traced back to Daniel's tech startup's office in Palo Alto. My phone provider showed attempted SIM swaps. My Instagram had been accessed from a location I hadn't been near in weeks. Daniel wasn't just a controlling fiancé, he was waging war. I got a restraining order. My lawyer sent Daniel a cease and desist letter. But that only made him angrier. He started showing up at my old apartment building, leaving notes with the doorman, even sending flowers to my office with fake names on the cards like, "Your real future." It was creepy. One night, I stayed late working on a presentation. When I got to my car in the garage, there was a scratch down the driver's side door and the word liar written in what looked like Sharpie on the windshield. That was the night I moved in with Sarah for good. But then came the worst part. I found out from a former mutual friend, let's call him Marcus, that Daniel was planning something even bigger. Marcus told me, very casually over coffee, that Daniel had hired a PR consultant. That he was planning to set the record straight and share his side of the story in a very public way. I didn't think he'd really do it. Until I opened Twitter one morning and saw my name trending. Daniel had published a post on his company's blog titled, "The Fiancé Who Tried to Destroy Me." He spun the story like I was the manipulative one. He accused me of being unstable, emotionally abusive, and sabotaging his career out of jealousy. He claimed I never wanted to get married and had led him on for attention and money. He even attached photos, screenshots of texts taken out of context, photos of me looking upset during private moments, even one of me leaving the rehearsal dinner, claiming I stormed out in a rage. I felt sick, humiliated, furious. People online didn't know the truth. Some believed him. Some were neutral. Some even messaged me asking for my side. But none of that mattered to me. I knew what he was doing. He was painting himself as the victim to save face and hurt me. He wanted control, and when I took it away from him, he decided to punish me. That's when I decided I wouldn't stay silent. But I wasn't about to play his game online. I wanted to fight smart. Daniel wanted drama. I wanted justice. And I had a few cards left to play. I didn't post a single thing publicly. Not a single comment, tweet, or response. That silence drove him nuts. I know because Marcus, yes, the same mutual friend who spilled the beans, started forwarding me screenshots of messages Daniel had sent him. Stuff like, "Why isn't she reacting?" She always reacts. And she's playing a game. I won't let her win. I stayed quiet for a reason. I was working with my lawyer, collecting everything. Every email, every text, every fake account tied to him or his IPs. Even the stupid blog post, which, by the way, contained enough lies and doctored screenshots to qualify as defamation. But here's where it got wild. One afternoon, Sarah and I were going through old messages and noticed something strange about a file Daniel had sent me a few months before our breakup. It was just a PDF, something he claimed was a rental agreement for a honeymoon villa he wanted to book. When we clicked on the metadata, we realized it had been created and edited by someone else entirely. A name we didn't recognize. We did a little digging. Turned out, that person was a woman. And not just any woman, Daniel's ex-fiancé. The one he told me cheated on him, drained his bank account, and ghosted him 3 weeks before their wedding in New York 3 years ago. Except, she didn't. I reached out. Carefully. I sent her a respectful, non-accusatory message on LinkedIn. A week later, she replied. What she told me blew everything up. She had left Daniel because he had tried to force her to cut off her family and friends. Same playbook. Told her to quit her job as a graphic designer. When she resisted, he started sabotaging her too. She only got away because her cousin worked in cybersecurity and caught Daniel hacking into her accounts. She'd never gone public because she was scared. She had panic attacks for months. But she never signed an NDA. And when she found out what he was doing to me, she offered to help. Now I had receipts, 2 women, same pattern, same methods. We also learned Daniel had quietly settled 2 workplace harassment complaints at his startup. Both times, he paid off the employees and had them sign airtight NDAs. But we found a former intern who didn't sign anything because she left before it escalated. And she had emails and Slack messages that were creepy as hell. Still, I didn't go public. Not yet. I wanted to hit him where it really hurt. And then, something happened that almost felt too perfect. Daniel's company announced they were merging with a much bigger tech firm based in Austin. It was supposed to be a $30 million deal. Huge money. His board was on cloud 9. His reputation suddenly mattered again. So I called my lawyer. We sent a private package to the acquiring firm's legal team. No Reddit post. No blog article. Just a very professional dossier with timelines, digital evidence, and multiple testimonies. The other ex. The intern. My story. All organized. All fact-checked. I didn't think they'd believe us at first. These things always get buried, especially when money's on the line. But I underestimated how much big companies care about risk and reputation, especially in the post-#MeToo era. 2 weeks later, the merger deal fell through. Daniel's blog post mysteriously disappeared the next day. So did his LinkedIn profile. His company issued a vague statement about leadership restructuring, and last I heard from Marcus, Daniel was no longer CEO. But don't think that's where it ends. Because Daniel wasn't done. He sent me an email. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted revenge or just peace. But either way, there was one thing left hanging that I couldn't ignore. The wedding. We'd booked this massive venue in Sonoma, paid deposits, arranged catering, flowers, the whole thing. I had walked away from it all, sure. But technically, the venue was still booked under both our names. So imagine my surprise when I got a notice in the mail, final invoice from the venue. It had my name on it. But there was a problem. It was dated 2 weeks after the cancelled rehearsal dinner. Daniel had rebooked the venue, under our names, for a new event. I called them immediately. The woman on the phone was confused and said, "Oh, we assumed you'd told her everything. The sabotage, the lies, the restraining order, the defamation post, the stalking, the ex before me, the intern." She didn't say much. She just kept whispering, "Oh my God," like she was piecing together a puzzle she'd been staring at for months. We hung up after half an hour. 2 days later, I got another call. This time from Sarah, who had somehow heard from Marcus. Marcus had been invited to the new wedding. Except there was no wedding. Isabel had called it off the night before. And she didn't do it quietly. She showed up at the pre-wedding dinner. Yes, Daniel threw another one, with a stack of printed emails, screenshots, and quotes from the women he had hurt. In front of his friends, his family, and what was left of his professional network, she calmly laid out every ugly truth. Daniel lost it. He yelled at her, tried to deny it all, then turned on Marcus for leaking things. Someone tried to escort Isabel out, but she just stood there and said, "You don't get to rewrite this story again." His mom, apparently, cried. His sister called him disgusting. His dad just sat there, not saying a word. That night, Isabel messaged me. All she wrote was, "Thank you. You saved me." I didn't respond right away. I just sat with it. There was no explosive final showdown between me and Daniel. No dramatic courtroom scene or public apology. Just silence. Like the storm passed, and the air felt still for the first time in months. After that, he went quiet. His company never recovered. A few months later, his LinkedIn showed him consulting independently, which I'm pretty sure is code for unemployed. He moved out of state. Changed numbers. Maybe he's starting over. Maybe he's hunting for his next victim. I don't know. I don't care. Sarah and I still joke about it sometimes, calling it the almost wedding that exposed a villain. But privately, I've thought a lot about everything that happened. I was angry. Deeply angry. I was hurt, humiliated, used. But there was something worse than all of that, the feeling that I had almost disappeared. That if I hadn't stood up for myself, if I had just gone along with it, I'd be living in some polished prison with a man who saw me as a prop. That thought haunts me more than any of Daniel's lies. But I'm here. I'm okay. The job? I kept it. In fact, I got promoted last quarter. I started seeing a therapist who helped me untangle the emotional damage. I'm rebuilding. I don't flinch when I see his name anymore. I don't need closure. I just need it out. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever consider dating again. I tell them I'm in no rush. But I'm not scared of love. I'm just not willing to lose myself for it again. If someone ever tries to make me choose between who I am and who they want me to be, I already made that choice.